Okay, we're here today with Ryan Coleman. Ryan is with Coleman Automotive, part of the executive team that really helps run all the dealerships. And Ryan, tell me what your title is. I know you've got a title. It's not what I would call you, but
Yeah, right. Well, I have the title of director of operations, but I feel like, I'm the jack of all trades and master of none at this point. It's just with the different directions and everything that I'm kind of involved in on a daily basis.
yeah, I'd call you CTO, Chief
Yeah.
Technology Officer.
Yeah.
You are technology of the whole dealership
Yeah.
and really pull the systems together. So welcome, happy to have you
Yeah.
here. And
Thank you.
man, we got some really cool topics. Just been overwhelmed these days with AI, so
Yes.
definitely want to get into AI,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
maybe just start out, just tell us a little bit about what you do every day
Yeah.
at Coleman.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a little bit of a wild ride this last year just because of our level of acquisitions and just everything that goes into that. So we just closed on our last dealership, which is just outside the Cleveland market. So what my daily there's just a lot of lead up whenever we close on a dealership, when it comes to working with our software partners, being able to work with the people that we bought the dealership from to get all their data, and just working with all those kind of tangible pieces to be able to bridge that gap and move things over to the Coleman way. And, so that's kind of a big portion that kind of takes up a lot of my time and just getting all of that infrastructure set up with these new buys, and then just obviously helping everybody else at all the other existing stores as well. So
Let's talk about one of those acquisitions. So
yeah,
so kind of walk me through what goes into it and the amount of lead time you have before an acquisition.
yeah, yeah. So I feel like we never have as much time as we want. Because these deals are all, you're
Doing
working.
one every quarter is kind of the pace we've been on.
Yes, yeah, so, one every quarter is definitely, but as far as, like, the lead time, I guess, every deal's a little different. You're dealing with a dealership group. Some of these families have owned these dealerships for 10, 20, 30 years. So that's a whole quagmire in itself. Some people, so sometimes, and that's Kyle's side of things that bring these deals to fruition and bring it to the finish line, and then he kinda tees that up to the executive team, which is me, Jamie, which is our COO, and our variable director, which is Jay. And we all kind of have different roles, and then we all kind of just work together. And then also our CFO, which is Andrea. Um, so we all kind of have our different skill sets that kind of just really create a really unique perspective of just being able to execute at a high level. I've been in the business for 20 plus years. Our COO, Jamie, she's the same thing. She's been in the business for over 20 plus years. So just having all this different industry knowledge. But, so once we do that, and, Kyle gives us the green light that we are going to be moving on a new acquisition, then, kind of the first stages are going to be to really reach out to a lot of our software vendors to, let them know, hey, this deal's going to happen. Because there's a lot that goes into their setup as well. These are they have to slot in time for their full data teams, and then we have just a lot of setup work when it comes to so going into like our DMS, which is
Dealer management system.
yep. Yeah, so that's kind of like our brains of the operation, so that's one of our biggest software pieces when it comes to automotive, because that's going to have all of your accounting software, really just tracking a whole bunch of different parts of the infrastructure. So there's just a lot of setup that goes into that. So we've partnered with a company called Techion, which I would say is definitely the most innovative in the automotive space when it comes to automotive solutions. And they're really on the forefront when it comes to doing some really cool stuff with AI. And one of the things that's really cool, I think, as well with us, and especially with my role, since I am a very technology forward thinking person, is they really latch on to groups that are like that. So we've really been a part of just any types of new technology. So we have like their top developers that we get to work with and have conversations with, and we really have those relationships with all of our software vendors, which is really cool. Because at the end of the day, we have all this industry knowledge, and they want to innovate and scoop up more market share. So they're always looking for innovative dealerships that can kind of pump them some good ideas
Right,
if
right.
you have those ideas, because they're always looking for opportunities. And at the end of the day, we're the ones that are using the software. And we spend a lot of money for this stuff. So if we can help to curate it to create better experiences and at the end of the day make more money, that's what we're all trying to do. So but yeah, so when it comes to that, a lot of it is just the setup of working with those different software vendors. So that's a big piece initially. Another thing that takes up a lot of my time, especially with these new acquisitions, is just getting all the banks online. So I spent over a decade as a finance director, so I have a lot of knowledge when in really all of our executive staff have all cut their teeth in finance. I feel like when it um, for a lot of people in automotive, they've had a lot of experience with finance. That's kind of just like the pathway of success. Usually it's hard to skip that office because, if you started as a salesperson, usually that's the next step is either a sales manager or a finance manager because your best closers are there. So,
So the banks, talk about the banks. What are the banks, the role and what you're
yes.
integrating?
Yeah. So just working with all of our different lenders. So that's a big opportunity for us because a lot of these stores, Kyle's looking for opportunities within the marketplace, right? So there's lots of stores for sale, but finding a store that has good opportunity. One of the things that we're really good at, and something that we can add value to really quickly, since we have so much finance experience, is being able to find dealerships where maybe they don't do as well in finance. It's one of the quickest ways to add quick injection of capital to an auto group. Just being able to take if they average $1,000 per car and you take that to 2,500 within a short amount of time, that's a lot of quick equity. So that's one of the things that we've really gotten good at. Our variable director and just as we've built out our executive team of being able to really put these processes in place to kind of have a game plan with the Coleman way from the day one of just like, hey, these are the things that we're going to do, and give our new employees the tools so that they can execute.
Yeah.
So it's it's definitely been a fun wild ride, getting some of these things. And just at the end of the day, because I mean we're still a young group. It's been about 2 years now, and just as we've kind of ramped up and really kind of dialed in these processes. So it's gotten a little bit easier every time. And
Yeah.
it's been nice as well as our executive team has grown a little bit, just to have a little bit more brain knowledge and different perspective to be able to just execute at a higher level. Because at the end of the day, the more that we can execute, everybody wins.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And one thing I've recognized and seen it continue to improve is getting in there day one.
Yeah.
Day one, when you now own the dealership and you just took over and you walk in there that day, being able to get people, of course, everybody's really not sure what's going to happen. They're all scared and worried. They're not sure, who they're going to be working for. And so being able to go in there and give them the tools immediately. So get them on the systems. And I've seen it myself so many times where, we go in and they're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. This is helping me sell. But that's so important to be able to execute quickly. I mean,
Exactly.
if you spend a whole month trying to get the systems up, you've got unproductive people. Your sales just dropped. Your advertising, if your advertising's not set up to take off immediately, all of a sudden you just basically took down your signs and your advertising
Yes.
until you get them back up. So that's really important. And that's one thing I've seen you guys have done well and are getting better at every time.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're in the people business, and I feel like one of the things that me and my brother have gave us a little bit of a different lens, like, a lot of people in the automotive, their father, their mother, you know what I mean? It's a family business. It's been passed down. But, we cut our teeth growing, from the bottom to the top. And I think that that's always gave us a little bit of a unique perspective because we can relate to people in their different positions and not only their role, but also in life. And we try to help to, and I always look at that lens as well with our software because I've had software that made my life harder, right? So like at the end of the day, the thing we have an intentionality with the way that we do our processes and the vendors that we partner with, and it's all at the end of the day to create a better experience for our employees. because at the we're away from our families for a lot of time, when we work. So anything that we can do to make their lives more successful so that they can be successful, but also be efficient with their time, because the more efficient that they can be, the more money that they make, and everybody wins.
Yeah, and I've seen this over and over with the Coleman team coming in and getting implemented in 30 days after the acquisition. Boy, you go into the dealership and there's lots of smiles on their faces, and they come around and want to talk and share some successes
Yeah.
and say that, hey, this is cool. I'm really glad we're here with Coleman now. So
Yeah,
that's nice.
and it's just a kind of an important thing with not just automotive, but just in general. Some people just never get the opportunity to feel empowered, to feel like they have a voice. I've always loved to be able to grow people and just get, we have a, when we go in and take over these people, not these people, but take over these organizations, a lot of times, these guys have felt like they don't have a voice and they could have all sorts of great knowledge and great ideas. So we really try to hold on to everybody we can. And maybe they were an underperformer, but maybe they were an underperformer because they weren't given the tools or they weren't given the opportunity. Maybe they didn't do any training, which me and my brother and our team are really big on training our people, helping them to grow, giving them opportunities within the organization. And that's the thing that's so amazing about this business. I mean, I have just stories that I could talk about till the sun doesn't shine. I mean, one of my best finance managers started out cleaning cars. You know what I mean? And there's this one of my brother's childhood friends literally joined our organization as a finance manager, and now he just took over one of our dealerships as a general manager. So, we give these guys the tools and the opportunity, and there's just tons of opportunity to grow with us, which I think is really helped. Because at the end of the day, you can only grow as quick as the people around you. And that's one of the things that's really something special that my brother people love to listen to his story and be a part of, his dream. And, so it's fun to watch. And, the thing I get excited about is just watching the people under the Coleman organization win and see them grow and achieve because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. All the software, all that stuff is great. But just the people part of it is the thing that really, that I see a lot of joy in.
Yeah, and I've seen that also with Kyle, of course, your brother, that he gives the general managers latitude. Sets up the guardrail. The guardrails are there, the tracking, the dashboard to see what's important, but let them execute.
Yeah.
And have seen that now a number of times where somebody can come in and really be empowered to do what they think is right and execute with their team that they're building,
Yep.
and that's clear all the way through the ranks at the dealership that, hey, the GM there, he's the boss, he's the
Yeah.
one in charge. And so that's great to see. And
Yeah, I mean, we really encourage, at the end of the day, one of the big pieces when I get the time to work on this side of things, it's all about growing mindsets, and so all of our executive team, and we're starting to get some of our sales managers and general managers in it. We're on like a book club that we read books together. We, even me and my brother, we never have a mindset where we've learned it all. We're constantly trying to learn and grow together, and share those experiences. And, so just being able to do that with our leaders and, people just love that, being able to listen to somebody's perspective and being able to talk to the top people within that company. It's just a cool environment, to be able to have that. And, and it's really just kind of sparked a fire under a lot of our leadership. And then they take that same mindset and then they kind of grow their staff within, so it's a
yeah,
whole little echo chamber of, of mindset growth, which is really fun to see.
yeah, and having those guardrails, that's great, but letting them over the long term grow themselves, and it's, I would say it's a whole lot easier to do on a small scale,
Yeah.
with 2 that you started out with, and then 4, and now 6 dealerships. And what I see and really appreciate a lot about you and Kyle and the team is they're growing with it. They're growing with the organization, and it's, you know, the more we can scale at doing the same type of things, the better off we're gonna be. And, That's one of the hurdles a lot of companies run into or groups that, you can do it on a small scale with a couple of stores, but can
Yes.
you do it with 4 and 6 and 10 and 20 and, Kyle's goal of 40?
Yeah.
And so I've been really impressed at how you guys have executed there and continued to keep everybody involved at all levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's been exciting. I mean, especially with these last couple acquisitions where we've got to move into some larger markets. So it's just exciting just to be able to see, because I mean, at the end of the day, and we can go into this about some of our different software, but just a lot of these automotive dealerships there's just so much market share out there to be grabbed, with just some of the processes and things that we do at the end of the day to create different experiences, to make things still personal. That a lot of people think, oh, it's when it comes to buying a car, you can buy it online, but that really hasn't kind of panned out. In the end of the day, people still like to talk to people. It's still a big relationship business. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're still going to have your Carvanas and your CarMaxes, but the vast majority, it's the second biggest purchase most people make. So being able to just kind of capitalize on creating some unique experiences and being able to move into some of these bigger markets has just been really exciting because there's just a lot of opportunity. And that's kind of what, why we've been kind of moving towards some of that. Our first two stores, we had a great opportunity to move into in Iowa, and we've just been kind of branching out to some bigger opportunities, which has been really fun.
Yeah, nice. Well, good segue. Let's talk about the systems that Coleman has and why and how those make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of going back to our DMS. So when it comes to kind of like the brains of our operation, where all of our inventory is housed, all of the accounting and everything, we partnered with Techion, which is kind of unique. When it comes to the vast majority of, let's say, legacy automotive systems out there, they are kind of very old school UIs. They have a very hard threshold to learn. You actually have to know all of these like specific like little like you have to type like two letters to get to a different screen, and then you have to
You got to
memorize
know the
all of these.
secrets to be able to
It
navigate.
is, and it's a little bit of a hard
Yeah.
threshold. It's really and especially when you have like a younger demographic for a lot of our stores, that have grown up with technology, they don't like it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that's really unique. And Techion is really one of the few automotive DMSs that really have like we always compare it to like a kind of an Apple-esque kind of layout. So it's very user friendly to use. But they're just a very forward thinking software company. Because at the end of the day, all of these softwares have to kind of talk to one another. And the more that we can kind of grow that data and work it together, it makes us be able to execute on it. Because at the end of the day, and and we can kind of get in the weeds on some of that with just being able to make smarter decisions. And that's kind of how really the evolution of where AI is going and some of the cool things that I'm starting to work on when it comes to just actually building out some of our own software, which is really a separate discussion, which I would say uh, the most innovative and some of the largest automotive groups now. That's where a lot of people are actually doing right now. Is they're actually some of these large automotive groups are building out their own software stack in house, which is really pretty cool. And that's some of the stuff that we've been working on as well. Just to really just to have our because at the end of the day, when it comes to spending advertising dollars and all these types of things, anything that we can do to be able to make that dollar go a little bit further, to be able to get the information in a different way or get that information faster, because some people aren't as good with technology. So being able to bridge that gap for people that aren't as good with technology, and just get that information to them a lot quicker and faster so that we can make faster decisions. And that could be something as simple as, vehicle that's been sitting on our lot a little too long, or being able to analyze our inventory in a way to know that, hey, we sell this color of car better than this color of car. This is the kind of inventory. Let's buy inventory of this type of vehicle because we move it quicker,
Yeah.
and just a lot of dealers, they just don't execute on these kind of minute differences. But that's the really just the wildness of if you can really harness some of these data insights, you can make a lot smarter decisions. And if you can kind of start to really get that dialed in, you can just really start to scoop up market share. And that's partly how we've been able to grow so quickly. With me and Kyle, we've both been fortunate. I worked with one of the most successful Honda dealers in the Midwest. Kyle came from, one of the largest privately owned automotive groups, and he ran an extremely large Toyota dealership. So we came from really successful organizations, and then we have our own kind of brand of things of ideas because we're young and hungry, which kind of made us branch off on our own. But yeah, so that it's just been a really cool thing to kind of see and involve, and especially with the technology piece because I love that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
so I'm the one that's always trying to knock on the door of, where are we gonna go next, and, trying to innovate and look for creative ways to make it fun.
Yeah. Nice. And so I was had the pleasure of going with the team to NADA, National Auto Dealer
Yeah.
Association conference back in January, and I'll tell you, and I have no doubt you'll confirm this, but walking around every single booth had AI somewhere on the booth,
Yeah.
and it's like that was just so cool to see. I grew up in technology and fintech,
Yeah.
and I always thought that was it. That was the cat's meow of technology, and what I've learned in, just a year is the amount of technology there is in automotive. Oh my gosh, there was an exhibit hall with over 1,000 vendors.
Yeah.
It's like you just couldn't even possibly even see everybody in the couple of days we were there. But let's talk about some of the AI that's used at Coleman, and
Yeah.
then also maybe we'll get into some of the other things that you think are coming. But let's start
Yeah.
with what you're using today.
Yeah, so when it comes to, like, I would say, like, the front side of the business, our CRM, which is Drive Centric, and they were really a early innovator. They were the really one of the first true CRMs that, like, had, like, a Chat GPT, type of bolt-in, when nobody, there was a lot of, like, third-party CRMs that would, bolt on, like, and the downside to that when it comes to AI, because you gotta think of it like this. So, when it comes to, like, if you're a CRM and you wanna integrate a third party AI on top of that, they're only gonna let you get some of it. You know what I mean? Because like,
Right, right.
and that's kind of the downside to third parties. So at the end of the day, anybody that you can partner with where they have that kind of right leadership and they're developing that stuff in house, there's just way more capabilities. So they were a really early adapter to that. And just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that it can do. So, and this is really pretty cool. So, like from a sales side of things, you have something just as simple as, like, let's say that they want to send us a text message or an email to a customer. They got a little genius button that they can hit. And, we're all, I want to say, kind of terrible spellers these days, just with, spell check and stuff, which is pretty crazy
And
because
going downhill fast.
oh, yes. I mean, I used to win spelling bees, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm bad these days, this what technology kind of does to you on some of the, we get kind of hooked on it, but just little things like that. So being able to, like, clean up your text and, just kind of give you a little bit more of a polish. So it does little things like that. Or as simple as, putting an email together, you can do kind of just like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI you use, where it's just like, hey, this customer is, comparing to a Chevy Traverse and they're looking at my Ford Explorer. Help me create a better email of some pros and cons of why our product is a little better. At the end of the day, the more that we can kind of get our staff really in all of our different positions, being able to use these tools, um, and being able to just execute on those things, we're all kind of winning. And,
Mhm.
so a lot of that is just getting people kind of used to it. So that's just one piece of how AI is. Another kind of opportunity that we have. So all of our, like, after hours. So let's say somebody puts in an auto trader lead. We're going to have an automated AI bot that's going to and all of their stuff is custom created in house. So, you know what I mean? It's not like saying weird stuff or anything. So they
Yeah.
have a pretty, enterprise solution that they've built out. But it's having conversations and it can actually, I mean, it's good to the point where customers come in and ask for that person. then so it's pretty funny, you know what I mean? It's like, no, this is who I've been working with. It's like, oh, well, look, so that's kind of just a funny
Claude's
thing.
not here,
Yeah,
but I
exactly.
can
So,
help you.
yeah, yeah. So that's just another piece, and they're especially with NADA, they're rolling out, kind of that next echelon of 2026. Which is going to be kind of the advent of AI agents. So they're kind of dipping their toes and building some of that stuff out. Um,
And elaborate on an AI agent.
Well, kind of where I see the industry going and where I really see Coleman Automotive being out kind of growing into over the next 12 to 24 months is really think of an AI agent isn't really a person,
It's a person.
right? And this is really the unique thing about agents is now with agents, you can build in all this base of knowledge, right? So like you can say, you know, all this OEM information or just
Provide all the details about the vehicles and
exactly.
by
So
type and
yeah, customer
okay.
service, like all, how do you speak to somebody with, good customer service and or brand identity, what's Coleman Automotive about? And then just being able to have those conversations. So I really feel like that is where the industry's kind of most of these shops that are really on the cutting edge, that's what they're kind of working on now. So that's one angle. The other kind of angle that because since we are really on the forefront as far as an automotive group working with directly with these AI teams that are our software vendors is kind of an internal AI agent that's going through our data and looking for opportunities. And that is the part that really gets excited about me. And that's one of the reasons why we've started to build out our own software in house is because at the end of the day, if we have all this data, we want to create our own internal AI employee that we can give it the context, right? And just start to set up some automated stuff. And that could be just as simple as just to give you, for instance. So right now, we have a new digital dashboard that we've built out. That so when it comes to all of like advertising, so like our Google advertising, all of that stuff is through Google. So they have API set up. So that's an API is basically imagine just like a fast highway of to be able to get that data. And so that's one piece. Our Google, when it comes to like our website, so if you search a website, you'll see like that little Google thing on the side where it shows the address and everything. Well, every time somebody clicks that, all of the analytics of that, or if let's say that you search, let's say Lamar Chevrolet GMC, one of our dealerships, did we what ranking did we show on that page? Are we on page one? Are we on page two? Where are we at on that page? So being able to pull in all those data points, and then I have built out a custom AI agent that literally looks at all of this information and it finds market gaps. So it's just really wild to be able to see that. So right now I've it found some market gaps for some of our websites. So my agent built out I want to say 40 new landing pages just to be able for us to scoop up more market share. So if somebody searches, let's say our Spirit Lake store and they type in Jeep near me, well, that's that and Jeep near me and that market gets searched 16,000 times a month. I can do a very
Right,
small amount of spend and be able to capture that search, which is going to drive more people to our website, which equals more car sales.
right.
You know what I mean? And there's just I mean, I could talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just wild, you know what I mean? Just how good if you know how to kind of work with this stuff, to be able to kind of look for market gaps. So you can really just ingest all this SEO knowledge into these AI agents, and they're working 24/7. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
24/7, 365 days a year. These little AI agents, you can just get them working in a loop where they're just their sole mission is to have Coleman win. And that's the thing that's just wild about it. And just, I don't know. I was talking just yesterday. So with the largest AI conference in the United States just took place 3 days ago. And the CEO of NVIDIA talked about the end of his keynote with basically this thing, which was OpenClaw. OpenClaw is basically a scaffolding that sits on top of AI models that makes it agentic. And what I mean by that is most people are used to using AI, but when it comes to using AI, you're going to like a chat GPT or a Claude and you just type in something and then you wait for that response. Whereas these, when set up, if you can set it up properly, it will just do what you ask it to. So it will go and read how to install something and install it itself and figure out how to do it, go to the documentation. So if you can, you know what I mean, build it out in a certain way, it can just run in these loops to be able to solve all these different problems.
So
So
it's just monitoring these searches and finding
everything.
gaps, and
Yes,
all of a sudden it finds this gap on Jeep and then makes a
exactly.
change and
Yeah.
creates the
All
landing
I mean,
page.
just
And
it's
okay.
crazy just like how, you know, when you can start to really ingest this amount of knowledge. I mean, we had one website where the title, this is like a meta title. So like you know, when you set up websites, there's like titles that live in the background where like if you search something, it catches that meta title.
Mhm.
And one of them, our website provider just had the wrong city. How would I ever know that? You know what I mean? Like I can't see the metadata, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
But AI can catch that stuff. You know what I mean? So then I had my agent write up an email and send it out to the right because I'm not going to do that. My agent can do all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you know, do this and write the email and tell it the problems. I've gave it. It has a Office 365 login, so it has all the full suite of tools. It can do. I mean, it creates Excel spreadsheets for me, PowerPoints, everything. I mean, you name it. Um, you know, so and then that agent has people that work under him. So I have a whole orchestrator of agents. So if I needed to, so when it built out those 40 web pages, it didn't do that. It told its agent to do that. So you got
The
to think
agent who builds web pages.
it's exactly. So you have to think of this as not you know, it's not really an agent. It's a whole organization. We have a separate organization that's going through our data, looking for opportunities to help us win. And that's just one of the things that's been fortunate. You know what I mean? I've spent, you know, the better part of my whole adult life, you know, digesting and loving that side of the business. So it's just been fun to be a part of that side of since I feel like I have a little bit of a unique take, just you know, because generally I would say people that are of my spectrum of technology usually aren't in that my same position, you know what I mean? They're usually programmers or you know what I mean? So it's just kind of cool to be able to have all my industry knowledge because it really just allows me to be able to execute on things at a completely different level. I mean, so I built out a custom dashboard for our CRM for all of our GMs and our sales managers, and I showed this to our CRM company, which is, you know what I mean, they're a huge CRM company. I mean, they work with some of the largest automotive groups in the world. And, you know, their lead developer said it was the best dashboard that he's ever seen, which makes you kind of feel good like, hey, you know, really, you know, we're not just creating something that's like everybody else's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're doing some pretty unique stuff that is really just allowing us to do some interesting things with our data.
yeah. Let's talk about AI and other parts of the organization. Are you using AI in service? Anything like that?
So when it comes to the service side of things, so one of the things that's really cool that we did, and we made this decision, it's probably been maybe 8 months, something like that. 8 months ago, we partnered with a company called the Collins Group. You know, when it comes to market opportunity, we've really kind of just leaned in heavy when it comes to fixed operations. And
Which is fixed, which is service,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
okay.
You know, and just service and vehicles. And really, if you follow really any of the really innovative groups right now, are really seeing that that is your biggest low hanging fruit. You know, it's funny in automotive, we spend all of our money focused on the front side of the business. You know, so like all the
The
cool
advertising and
tools.
everything people see.
Yes, you know, sending the sales guys to see the top trainers and all those different things. And, you know, sometimes we forget about our poor service guys. But at the end of the day, really the service is one of the most pivotal parts of our business because you know, when we sell a car, they see the service for the rest of the time for the most part, you know.
Yeah.
So being able
They
to
buy it once every 4 years, and they have a
exactly.
service for those 4 years.
Yeah. So the service advisors are usually one of the biggest relationship, you know, at an automotive group if they do it really well. Cause, you know, we always want to have a high level of retention. So the more that we can kind of really dial in our service department, that's going to really make us be able to exponentially win over the coming years. So it's not a quick battle, but you got to set these processes in, that so you can win over time. So you don't get those as quick a results, but that's really how you can just exponentially kind of dominate when you can really kind of. So we partnered with the Collins Group, which he's a pretty famous kind of guy within the fixed operations. He's wrote a lot of books. And at the end of the day, me and my brother, we want to partner with people that have innovative, thoughts and processes. We knew that we had some gaps in the service side of things that we could do better. So we partnered with them, and it's been a great partnership. Um, of just being able to just dial in the customer experience. At the end of the day, it all goes back to that. Like, we've gave these guys tons of software opportunities to be able to, communicate with their customers quickly, to give them updates, which is probably one of the biggest things that most service partners are terrible about is, they don't know when their car's ready and those types of things. Um, but there, so like one of the things that we're rolling out new with our group right now is video with all of our advisors and our techs, which is really cool. I would say, like any of the groups that really do well, most of them do that. So just being able to have the techs actually shoot a video and it's like, hey, you need new tires and actually show, what I mean, the baldness and
Right, right.
explain that. I mean, if you think about just how big video is these days, whether it be TikTok and stuff, so just being able to show a little bit of transparency, I just feel like it creates a little bit of a different experience than what they've probably been used to. So that's one area. But definitely, as far as the AI, just to go back to your original question, on the service side, they definitely have some AI tools, which just mainly kind of the same thing that I talked about before. So when it comes to Techion with their data, it's always so we have like a higher end package with Techion because it's just like everything, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
To get some of their coolest things, you got to pay for it. But with service, missed opportunities and things like that. So it's constantly looking for that stuff and then giving that stuff to, mainly our service and parts director.
Yeah,
These are like the missed opportunities within the service department, and then he executes those with his leadership team. Of these are the
yeah.
focus points and stuff, but not anything quite yet. Uh, on the sales side, where they're directly working with AI tools, that's actually something that I've been, in talks with right now. Because one of the things that I really wanna roll out is our service advisors, start to use Claude on a daily basis, because let's face it, like, the AI does a great job of being able to curate conversations. I mean, whether it be writing emails, so and, I like I told you before, I'm always trying to ingest information and listen to other auto groups and so I listen to the Car Dealership Guy podcast, which Kyle's been on multiple times. That's a great resource. They have, some of the largest, most successful groups, so like, they have Fixed Ops Friday. So I was talking to our Fixed Ops director and I was listening to an episode that they had, and they were talking about how all their advisors are using Claude. So when a tech goes over a car and he has all this detailed information of all these things that are broke on it, right? Well, you can just take all that text, give it to Claude, right? And then say, hey, I'm getting ready to call this customer, help to put a conversation together, to deliver this in a way that they see the importance of the value, or however you want to put that
Yeah.
context. And it's going to be able to put something together that just help to pace that conversation in such a better way than what they
Yeah.
ever will.
Even I've seen, and I listen to Car Dealership Guy all the time. I kinda chuckled when you said that because we often exchange messages
Yes.
about, Car Dealership Guy podcast, but, I look at it like, one place I've seen it used is, we all get an invoice or an order once we're done of all the things that happen. It's like, we look at that, a non-car person, it's like, "What the heck does that line mean? I
Yeah.
don't even know." And
Yep.
so to be able to take that and say, "Hey, put this into a paragraph or
Exactly.
write this out and explain this to the customer and give them a summary." Wow,
Yep.
that is just so helpful for a
Yeah.
customer and that experience. And then, as you pointed out on the video, you know, when somebody's there in the store and, they're waiting on service, the technician, ideally, they can take them out and say, "Hey, let me show you here what's wrong."
Yep.
Well, they're not there most of the time these days. So if you can send them a video and show them exactly as you talk about it, wow, what a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it bridges the gap. It humanizes, us. That's a real person. Talking and explaining the car. I just feel like it reinforces the relationship. It gives us some credibility. At the end of the day, cars are more expensive now than what they ever have been. It's a big investment, and keeping that vehicle running reliably, um, so just being able to bridge that gap with having a little bit of extra credibility and showing those types of things, because that you got to break those stereotypes. Because unfortunately, there have been a lot of dealers that haven't done things the right way, So we're always trying to look for opportunities just to be able to kind of change that kind of mindset and to create a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, yeah. And being proactive. I mean, you talked about the service orders and identifying opportunities. Well, if you find something that's not right with that car and you can head that off so they don't end up being stranded,
Yep,
well, that's good for the customer.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, and
really,
that's one of the things that Collins has really helped us with. Since that's all they do is service, and they have a lot of skill set on of helping us give us the knowledge of this, like, hey, these are the processes that we need to put in place to help grow our tech. So not only are they, shooting videos and things like that, but so that they can do a better job,
hmm,
and so giving our service managers, because maybe they need a little bit more coaching on leadership and holding those techs accountable and hey, you did this and this right, but you missed this, and just being able to kind of invest that time and knowledge, and get,
help
at the end of
them
the day to
learn. Yeah,
get them to learn and get better.
yeah. So let's talk about the OEMs, the manufacturers. Obviously, they're, the main thing they do is build cars. How are they adopting? Are they behind? Are they
Yeah.
ahead? Are they pushing the dealers? Are the dealers pushing the OEMs?
It's a funny uh kind of symbiotic relationship that we have with the OEMs. I definitely feel like there's some manufacturers that are, a little more cutting edge than others, but they definitely, I feel like the vast majority of them are all kind of diving into, that piece of technology. But at the same token, sometimes we just look through the lens of we just wish they just stick to selling cars and just let us figure out how to sell them too. There's some of these manufacturers, they this, they want you to advertise a certain way, and that, so it's like sometimes it's a tug of war with some of these types of things, because at the end of the day, we know how to sell the metal. So sometimes it can be frustrating with some manufacturers. So just kind of working through those types of things and working with the right partners and the right advertising. Because sometimes it's working in those gray areas as well, of just like maybe the way that you can advertise in this market is, there's some kind of wiggle room and stuff like that. So we really try to partner with really smart people. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to those types of things, we don't know everything. So we really try to lean on our people that we know within, our relationships within the marketplace. My brother, he's a part, and this is one of the things that's been really cool being on the car dealership guy. They've kind of curated these groups of their of up and comers and really successful auto groups to be in these little small dealer 20 groups where you can just really get some interesting insight from other automotive groups. And, these are people that are extremely successful, that have been doing this a long time, and just being able to find, be able to pull on those, that I feel like, just being able to have those relationships and, just so that we can, try to execute as much as we can,
Yeah.
and win.
Yeah, that's something I've seen over the years in all different industries. Man, the more you can get together with those successful people and share ideas. I mean, even the guy that's, the biggest there is out there, the largest independent, he's still got some things to learn. And and he's probably where he is because he does learn
Yeah.
and he does listen. And the small guy can often find little niches that he can do really well, and the big guy can learn from that, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the turn of phrase, it's a small big business, and it definitely feels like that. Even though there's a lot of automotive dealers, it is kind of just a small, kind of feeling sometimes with but yeah, just being able to, at the end of the day, I've just always had a mindset to try to latch on to any good information if I, don't- and I love being able to pick people's minds and, or, just listen to different podcasts and look for opportunities. And I think, that's kind of the big differentiator for us. We're not sitting on our heels. A lot of these stores that we've been buying now, they're successful organizations, but we're constantly thinking, what can we do better this month? What can we tweak with our processes? How can we create a better experience? You know, we're a 4.6 on Google. How do we get it to a 4.8? You know, so we're constantly looking for opportunities to grow and to win. And
Yeah.
that mindset's really a culture throughout the whole Coleman Automotive Group. We empower our people, and that's from the very bottom to the top up, and I think that that's been, and then really kind of helped us hold on to when we buy these stores and, been kind of just a shot in the arm, for a lot of these employees to be a part of something where it's just like, wow, like, I can make change and I can, bring ideas and, we love it.
Yeah. And going back to, I mean, Coleman started with 2 dealerships, and then with Prime, we've now got total of 6,
Yeah.
with 7 coming
Yeah.
and a few more
Yep.
coming shortly after. Moving the needle a little bit in one dealership moves it a little bit.
Yeah.
Moving the needle a little bit with 6 dealerships or 10 dealerships, that that really is a material move.
Yeah. Yeah, it all goes back to, people, the getting getting the right people on the bus that buy into what our vision is, and then just having them get in there and execute on that vision.
Mhm.
And then from there, the sky's the limit. We can give them all the tools and, all of those different things, but it still requires, those boots on the ground for people to get in there and actually have these relationships with the people and to be able to execute on all these processes and things like that. And I we've been fortunate, with us being in automotive as long as we have. We've had a lot of relationships and people that have wanted to join. I mean, our first 2 dealerships were in the middle of nowhere in Iowa, you know what I mean? And people have been crazy enough to come and leave their stable jobs and want to, come along for the ride. So, and that has just hasn't slowed down any. I mean, especially with, Kyle being on all these podcasts and hearing his story. It's just now it's just picking what people we want to be part of the journey,
Yeah, that's
and we've continued to raise that bar on just the level of employees that we've really just got to choose from, which is really exciting just to be able to get some of these high performers. And because that's a job in itself, being able to, when you buy these stores, to line up the right people for that, which we've got a really good
yeah.
executive team of people that really, whether it's somebody that we know or don't know, and just working through, and getting those pieces into place so that when we start day one, we can execute quickly. Because it is when you go in and buy a dealership, it's an uneasy time for those employees, and you've made that comment. When we're boots on the ground, the whole executive team's in there and meeting with these people, and we meet every single employee and have a conversation and talk to them. It just kind of calms those nerves, and if anything, it just kind of gives them a shot, and then they kind of get excited because a
Right.
lot of these people have not even had those opportunities to have a conversation ever.
Yeah.
And some of these are people have been there 10, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
and they've never even had that opportunity to have conversations with the executive and
Yeah.
stuff. So that,
Very personal. It's
yeah,
a when it is personal, that's when you have, people that stand behind you and go to bat for you.
absolutely. Yep.
So, okay, let's talk the future. What do you see happening in the next 12 months in software? Let's say 12 to 24 months.
Yeah. So we're really at one of the most wild times I'd say to be alive. I mean, this I've always been a little bit of a futurist, you know what I mean? My mind's always been that way. Um, but just, if you think about it, when have you ever been in a time where I think we've all been at a place where you've like, man, I wish this software was around, or I wish that this could do this. We have technology right now where you can have that idea and code it into fruition with no coding knowledge. So, any of the really innovative dealerships are starting to build out their software stacks in house. And that's the thing that's really cool. So, and what I've really been pushing with all of our software vendors. So, like with our CRM, we were actually one of the first automotive groups to get their partner API that they had just developed. So, we have like a direct pipeline for our data because you have to think of it like this, like when it comes to data, they have a whole dashboard of how they display those things. Well, maybe I don't like the way that that's
Mhm.
displayed. Maybe I don't like how quickly it gives it to me. So being able to curate that data in a way of however I want it and to do whatever I want, to be able to tie that into all these different pieces, just creates such a unique aspect. But really, where I see everything going, especially on the short term right now, is just really being able to harness all these facets of our software and data pieces. So whether it's our vehicle inventory. So, we pay a lot of money for all this different software. So we have all of our inventory on one piece of software and it has tons of analytics, how quickly we sell this car. And, when it comes to inventory, we spend a lot of money for these vehicles, right? And, being able to sell that inventory quickly. So being able to take all that data and how can we make smarter decisions with it? So that's really where my head is in most of the really innovative companies, and really just across the whole landscape right now. If you're kind of tied into anything with AI, that's what everybody is focused on right now. So the next 12 to 24 months, everything is, think of it like this. So, really anything, and Elon Musk, he talks a lot about this. Anything that is a software related job, you're on a clock. Those are gonna get replaced by a AI agent. I foresee that that new job that's gonna be in the company is gonna be an AI agent orchestrator. So that you're gonna have a specialist within your company, and because it's it requires quite a bit of skill and knowledge to be able to corral these agents in a way, at least in its stage right now. There's a lot of companies that are investing billions of dollars right now to build out agent infrastructure. And this stuff is changing on an hourly basis right now. I mean, if you listen to the guys that are really in the weeds on this stuff, I mean, there's never been such an exponential growth of intelligence. I mean, Elon Musk just made the comment by this decade, our GDP is going to 10x. Think about that. Our GDP is going to 10x.
It is.
I mean, he says within 3 years, his robots are gonna be able to perform surgery better than a surgeon. Now, sometimes he's been a little off the market when it comes to his time frame, but let's just say within the next 10 years even.
Right, right.
I mean, that's just so we are in a revolution of time when it comes to all things knowledge. And it's just a wild time to be alive, to be able to ingest all of this data into a system, which, Claude is probably the one that's been the biggest generational leap because of how well you can give it all this base of information and it can accurately pull a needle out of a haystack with that. So you can just give it all this information and then it has all of that. And then you can give it like, hey, what do we do here? What do we do here? And then it can use all these different tangent pieces of data to be able to just execute on things and ask it questions that you would never even think to ask. So, that's definitely where everybody's investing their time and money. All of these companies are right now are developing processes to figure out how they can create these agents in a safe way because it has to be safe. That's the other thing, right? You're given a piece of software, private information, customer information. So it has to be done in the right way. So just being able to manage all those things. Um, but yeah, where do I see that, I'll be curious within the next decade if we're even paying for software with these companies. I would be surprised within 5 years if we don't just build our own CRM. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's where I really see it going.
It's just been amazing to see and to be able to say, "Hey, I want you to write a program that does this and this and this and this," and it writes it. You say, "Oh, well, I need to add a way to create this kind of report,"
Yeah.
or "I need to be able to put this data in there also," or "I need to put a flag on, some of the data." It's like just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Well, and even with you had mentioned like when we went to NADA, there's all these software companies. But actually, when it comes to software and automotive, we've been behind for a long time. When it comes to like cutting edge stuff, like some of the things that like Mastercard and Visa and some of these like billion and trillion dollar companies, they've been doing some things for years now that automotive still isn't doing. So one of the areas is called a CDP. So a CDP is kind of like a big jump that a lot of automotive groups have been kind of diving into.
What's CDP stand for?
Um, Consumer Data Protocol or something like that, I want to say. But
Yeah,
basically, think of it like this. So, our DMS houses all of our customer
right.
information. So, and that data gets really dirty over time. Bad emails, bad phone numbers. And so,
Needs
uh,
to be
it
cleansed.
needs to be cleansed. So, most of the time, when it comes to cleansing data, one of the easiest ways to do that is working with a company called Experian. They're one of the largest
Right.
housing data. Pretty much think of it like this: they know everything about you. They know what your social, your date of birth, where you live, what your phone number is, what your email address. They got it all.
Who
If
you
you've
live
been wondering
with.
if Uncle
Yeah.
Sam's been watching, he's been watching. So they have all that information. So basically, you can take that data um, and have them clean it. And then you have to kind of build a CDP where all of that data is ingested. And you can do some really interesting things. So that's kind of, I would say, our future plans. I would say maybe next year that I really want to start to work on some of that because there's some really interesting use cases that I can start to put into place. So think of, so let's say a customer goes to our service scheduler. Well, every time you have to click all these different buttons, you know what I mean? If it takes 6 clicks to get to what you want, you might have lost 30% of those customers. You've probably experienced this with like Amazon. Have you ever went in and added something to the cart and then you get an email? You know what I mean? Like, hey, 25% off if you want to buy that now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, like, the market has been really good about that outside of automotive, but we've never really got into that market that well when it comes to that kind of stuff of being able to dynamically create those and kind of grab those customers. A CDP is one way that you can do some really innovative things like that. So that's one angle of something that is a future product that we're going to be going after. Actually, a really unique thing that I'm looking to, and this is actually something really nobody that I know of is really doing within automotive. Um, so one of the hardest things when it comes to when you go out and spend all this money for Google advertising and stuff like that, a term that we hear a lot is attribution. Basically,
Mm.
you really never know exactly when you spend money X, did that equal a car sale?
Yeah,
Google kind of has their algorithm of like what it tells you your ROI is, but it's not really
yeah.
as accurate as what we want. Well, there actually is some really cool stuff that we can do where Google kind of think of embeds a number behind things, but that number needs to kind of transition through the software stack. So this is actually I had reached out to the lead software developer or the person that runs the department for our CRM and kind of just opened up these conversations and it really sparked an interest. So he's wanting to set up a call for us. Um, so these are just kind of some of the pieces, because we spend a lot of money for advertising, and then especially as we grow into larger marketplaces, right? Your ad dollars don't go as far. You got to pay more money for those keywords and all these types of things. And there's some
Mhm.
big automotive groups that got some big pocketbooks. So these little nuggets could be opportunities for us so we can be able to dynamically be able to, because if we spend at advertising campaigns, being able to kill that campaign that's not doing well, but be able to, because sometimes we might not think that that's doing well, but being able to see true attribution in the dealership, sometimes there's a disconnect with what you think might's not doing well. And that was one of the things when we built out my sales dashboard, being able to see all of our different advertising vendors and all of those different types of things, and being able to see, hey, with cars.com, we spent X amount of money at this dealership, or maybe we did a mailer and that mailer was $5,000. And it's like, gosh, I don't know if I want to do that again. But then I can actually see every customer that bought a car on that mailer and directly see the gross that we made
Mhm.
on that specific deal. There's not many dealerships that I know of that are probably doing anything to that
Right.
level of detail. So there's just some really cool stuff that we're working on to just at the end of the day, just be able to harness our data. Not right now, I am doing most of that work and having to, you know what I mean, do that stuff, but kind of think of it like this. I'm putting all these things in place and building out these AI agents that are then just going to do it for me. It's really just building out that infrastructure and then just putting these agents to work. So it does take a lot of work and time to be able to do this and to build it out. Um, but those are kind of the kind of irons that I have in the fire, to really just make it so that we can just dominate in the marketplace. Because that's I don't want to just have 40 stores. I want to just really get in there and win at the highest level. So.
Nice. Very good. One last question. Tell us how social media plays into, the whole sales process
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, social media is a huge aspect. And that's been one of the pieces that I've really been diving into as I've built out some of our software stack that ingests all of our analytics when it comes to like organic traffic and all those things. Because think of it like this. So, like when we spend, let's say we spend $100,000 a month in advertising. You buy all these different keywords and all these different things to drive traffic. Well, the more organic traffic that you can get within the marketplace, advertising's cheaper because it didn't cost us as much money to get that customer in
Mhm.
front of it because it's organic. So that's really kind of the stores that have been in business for 50 years, they get a little bit of that that's kind of naturally. But we have to be really smart about and intentional when we come into some of these markets where maybe we're buying a store that's a little bit of an underperformer and they're not, performing organically.
Mhm.
So for one, we're looking to see how they're doing, in the marketplace organically, and then trying to just put our finger on the pulse to be able to see what we can do. And a lot of that stuff is, social media side of things. So we just took a meeting with a really big influencer that actually he started in automotive and as a sales guy and really just kind of flourished. He built up a whole gigantic TikTok following, and he did it as really just a necessity um, to really being at a smaller dealership as a way to get his voice out there. And then it really kind of blew up, and then he ended up turning a business into it. So that's kind of we're in talks with that right now with them, as just kind of that next echelon for him to work individually with our teams. Because let's face it, you know what I mean? A lot of people have, it's not like they know how to, to shoot a video and how you do that and how you get an audience. And
Right,
so
right.
this particular gentleman, he has all that knowledge. So those are kind of some things that we're working on to get that organic kind of search out there, and to have those individual voices, because that's what it's all about. I mean, it goes back to the people, but so many people now are just watching so much video. I mean, if you look at all of the shorts and stuff like that, I feel like attention span is so short now with TikTok and all these things. So you have these little opportunities to kind of get in the back of a customer's mind, and being able to kind of curate that knowledge with our different partners and our media companies, to be able to put that kind of branding out there, so that we can scoop up some market share. Um, So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of, some of the areas that we're kind of focused on to kind of invest in our individual stores, so that they can kind of create their own brand ambassadors and do their, at the end of the day, the stuff that I love is where people can just be themselves and be funny, with if we got a store
Mhm.
where it's a farmer, you know what I mean? And, maybe this guy's lived there his whole life and he's got his own kind of brand and personality. That's what people want. They want a genuine person. At the end of the day, people buy from people that they like and trust. And when you can get that voice out there of all these unique people, that's how people connect, because it's just, it's like they feel comfortable with them. That's somebody from their community. So the more that we can and get our staff to feel comfortable in doing that, I really feel like is going to be a fun thing. Like I said, we have some stores that where people have naturally taken to that. We're just going to try to do a little bit of an investment ourselves to kind of bring that to them instead of just kind of putting that on them.
Right, right.
So yeah,
Nice. Okay. Well, Ryan, thanks for trekking all the way to
yeah, no, I
Indiana.
appreciate you having me.
Have a podcast here and then your visit here to Fort Wayne. So
Fantastic.
appreciate it.
Thank you.